Today, I want to look at five scientifically proven ways that pornography messes us up. Over the last 40 years, there's been a ton of research that's come out of academia that has, I think, shown unambiguously that pornography is detrimental to the consumer, to our relationships, and to society as a whole. So even though Pornhub and everybody else who's pushing porn would like to have us believe that it's sort of Christian Puritanism, or an unhealthy view of sex that leads to people criticizing porn, this is just not what the science bears out. And so let's look at five scientifically proven ways that pornography messes us up, right? It just does. It's a great way to destroy your future marriage. It's a great way, if you want to remain sexually frustrated, pornography is the ticket. I mean, it's just a great way to be unhappy, all right? So I want to look at yourbrainonporn.com. This is a website that was founded by a friend of mine, the late Gary Wilson. He did a lot of work to show that pornography was just really bad for people. He was a friend of mine. You know, he said, look, I'm not a Christian. He said, I'm left of Bernie Sanders, which I thought was impressive. He said, I just think people have a right to know what pornography's doing to them. And so I actually ended up writing this book here called The Porn Myth. It's a non-religious response to pro-porn arguments. So if you want to kind of delve into this in a deeper way, you can get this book on Amazon, it's on Audible, and also just so you know, 100% of the royalties from my book go to help sexually trafficked victims in San Diego. So I don't make a cent from you purchasing this book. That's not why I'm pushing it. I just think it's a good book with a ton of research in it. But today I just want to look at just the summaries of some of this research. And we're not going to go through the scientific articles. I just want to look at some summaries of what porn does to us in case you're unaware. And then you can either go to yourbrainonporn.com yourself to read the literature, or get my book, The Porn Myth, because I go into a ton of it there. All right, so here's the first thing you should know. The first way porn messes us up. Pornography. Let's talk about pornography addiction. There is a list here on yourbrainonporn.com that contains 59 neuroscience-based studies, MRI, fMRI, EEG, etc. These type of studies, all of them but one, right? So 58 out of the 59 studies we have on porn users as it pertains to addiction conclude that pornography does mirror the neurological findings in substance addiction studies. That is to say, I mean, so it's somewhat of a contested issue, right? Is pornography actually addictive? And of course, it all has to do with what you mean by addiction, right? But just for the sake of argument, if somebody says to you, okay, I agree that methamphetamines can be addictive, I agree that nicotine or alcohol can be addictive, okay, so what we're saying here is these 58 studies mirror, these neurological studies mirror studies of those who are addicted to chemical addictions or other sort of addictions, substance addictions, right? So pornography, I think it's fair to say, you know, again, it depends on how you define addiction, but is addictive. That's the first thing to point out. All right, here's another thing I want to point out. Pornography leads to an escalation in types of pornographic material. So we have over 60 studies that report findings consistent with escalation of porn use, that is tolerance, right? Habituation to porn, and even withdrawal symptoms. All signs and symptoms associated with addiction. There are an additional page here with 14 studies reporting withdrawal symptoms in porn users. Okay. I think this is just important to point out. You know, perhaps you began by looking at swimsuit magazines or Playboy or something like that, and then you felt the desire to look at more hard, more deviant forms of pornography. There are neurological reasons for this. And again, this comes back to why pornography is addictive, right? We don't get the same thrill that we did before. So if you're finding yourself typing in and searching out materials that are shocking you, you know, maybe a year ago, if you knew that you'd be looking this stuff up, it would frighten you. There's reasons, neurological reasons for this. But the good news is that the brain can heal itself over time. It doesn't have to be like this forever. The brain is plastic, as it were. not that it's made of polyethylene, but that it's constantly remolding, rewiring, making new connections based on the behaviors that we engage in. And so that's good news. It's not the case that pornography is revealing your true, authentic sexual desires for these sick, deviant things. It's that pornography is numbing your brain and you feel the need to seek out more shocking types of pornography to get the same rush of dopamine as you did in the beginning. All right, let's look at a third way pornography messes us up. All right, so here under number 6, this list contains over 50 studies linking porn use, porn addiction, to sexual problems and lower arousal to sexual stimuli. How ironic that the very thing that boasts of the glory of sexual arousal, right, and promotes it and says it's the be-all and end-all, is the very thing that is stripping you of that thing. Now, what's interesting here is because you might say, okay, but these 50 studies, maybe they just show correlation. It doesn't prove causation. Well, the first 7 studies in this list demonstrate causation. How did they find that out? Because in these 7 studies, participants eliminated the one factor of pornography use and found that they healed from chronic sexual dysfunction. So we have shown now it's clearly the case that pornography use leads to things like premature ejaculation in men, erectile dysfunction in men, the inability to climax with women. I've said it before, pornography is the perfect way to frustrate you sexually and to see to it that you remain sexually frustrated. All right, here's the 4th scientifically proven way that pornography messes us up. Its effects on relationships, right? Over 80 studies link porn use to poorer sexual and relationship satisfaction. And this just seems to me to be obviously the case, right? We did a video on how masturbation, this is what C.S. Lewis said, that masturbation, when we masturbate, we envision a harem of imaginary brides that become the medium through which we increasingly adore ourselves, right? Because in sexual fantasy, the person we're fantasizing over is never calling for any sort of, adjustments on our part. Like we are the king, as it were. Is it any wonder then that when you get into a relationship with a flesh and blood woman or a flesh and blood man, that pornography is interfering with what could be a beautiful sexual relationship? All right. Now let's take a look at a bit more here. It says, as far as we know, all studies involving males have reported more porn use linked to poorer sexual or relationship satisfaction, while some studies report little effect on women's porn use to women's sexual relationships satisfaction. Many do report negative effects. I had a heartbreaking email sent to me maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And there was this woman who said that she looked at pornography before she got married, and she was hooked on it to such a degree that she couldn't climax without it. And so she would actually have to leave her husband in the bedroom, go and watch pornography, and come back. Like, that's so unappealing, unsexy, gross, right? So it absolutely has these negative effects. Let's just look at one more, right? Here's the 5th way that pornography, and science shows it, messes us up. Porn use affecting emotional and mental health. Over 90 studies link porn use to poorer mental emotional health and poorer cognitive outcomes. Now again, you can go to yourbrainonporn.com, scroll through this list, click the hyperlinks and read the studies for yourselves if you want to dive deeper, or you can get my book, The Porn Myth, on Amazon or Audible. We go into this in a deeper way. I think why this is so important that we do this is because we should educate ourselves about the thing that's destroying us. Like if you are engaging with a thing and only believe it to be giving you positives, well, it's no wonder you don't want to quit it. But educating yourself about all the things porn is robbing of you, I think is a really good way to incentivize you to begin to walk down the path to healing. Now, If you are a fella who struggles with pornography, I created a course called strive21.com. It's a 21-day detox from porn course that you can undergo. Strive21.com. It's free. You can sign up today. Tens of thousands of men have gone through it, and I think you'll find it super, super helpful. God bless. Thanks so much.